Good afternoon, Masquerade, Monweni, Sanbonani, Da. Welcome to another episode of Young African and Proud. My name is Chantel Muchaya, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going all the way back to Zimbabwe. Yes, again. And this time, we are meeting an amazing young lady who's making waves in the mental health sector. Tanaka Ndagurwa, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me, Miss Chantal.
And how are you doing today? You are looking fabulous.
Thank you. So are you. I'm doing well, by God's grace, truly.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that. You're doing so much from volunteering, you're honor student in psychology, there is work in progress. I mean, you're a female founder. There is so much that you're doing. So if someone is wondering who is Tanaka Ndagurwa, what do you have to say to them?
So, Tanaka Ndagurwa is a work in progress. I think that would be the genesis of my introduction. And that comes from an accounting term that refers to the value of goods that are not yet processed, or rather, the value of materials or goods that have not reached the expected vision as far as production is concerned, but they are still accounted for. And so I believe I'm still accounted for as I figure life out in different ways. And how do I express that? I express that through my work as a writer. I am the founder of the blog called Work in Progress, which is centered around highlighting the beauty, worth, and strength that is found in becoming. I am an orator. I have experience in facilitating youth and adolescent wellness conversations. I also am a social impact leader under the Millennium Fellowship Class of 2024. So, in a nutshell, that is how I express my being as a work in progress.
Wow, that is amazing. I love all those different community orientated initiatives that you're involved in, and also, mental health. And if you don't mind me asking, what got you in that industry? What made you want to be in a field where you're working with others and empowering them, especially their well-being?
For me, it was coming to the understanding that mental health is a necessity and not a luxury. So it's not a secondary attribute of our existence. It shouldn't be an afterthought. And so true to the statement that says we need to be the change that we desire to see, getting into the field not only through my writing and work as a social impact leader but also studying health psychology is my way of saying I want to walk the talk. I want to plant the seeds that will produce the fruit that I want to see, sustainable fruit in the space of mental health.
Outstanding. Wow. I wish if more young ladies would have that mindset. Even if we cannot just say young ladies, but the youth as a whole. Because many times we are more, I think lately in this current generation, we are more drawn towards materialistic things and we're not thinking
Mm.
about other things that matter, such as our well-being. And we think, well, if I'm going to have all the money in the world and push the grind, then I'm going to be okay. Whereas you can have the money, but you're still not emotionally in a good space. We can have all the money, but we can still live in communities, that have a lot of drug abuse amongst the youth, that have a lot of violence. But if we can focus more on the social impact, I think, there's a lot that can be done there. So well done. Well done to
Thank
you,
you
ma'am.
very much. Thank you very much, ma'am.
And what has been some of your success stories with the different initiatives that you've been involved in?
So last year, I was part of the Millennium Fellowship Class of 2024, which allowed me to champion Sustainable Development Goal number 3, good health and well-being, under a project called Walk the Talk. I got to have sessions with students at the Midlands State University, where I'm currently a student, the Gweru campus, where we talked about the intersection between mental health and sexual reproductive health. And seeing the turnout, but also seeing the ripple effect of students then opening themselves up to go to the counseling department and cultivate the ground that we've already, broken into on how certain decisions that we're making as far as our sexual reproductive health is concerned come from a space of wanting to compensate, come from a space of insecurities. It's not all experimental. Sometimes you are dealing with performance related love, for instance. And so being able to have those conversations and see action afterwards, and still have people that to date, months later come and give feedback on how it started a transformation, or it's begot a transformation in them, has been wonderful to see. And we also had wellness sessions for caregivers of patients with renal failure undergoing dialysis at the Gweru Provincial Hospital. And while we were a small group, this is everlasting change, because the thing with being a caregiver is that you often feel plunged into this pool without much swimming practice, right? More so when you're a familial caregiver, you're a wife to the person undergoing dialysis, you're a sister, you're a parent. There isn't much training, but the responsibility remains the same. And so being able to garner resources from nurse practitioners, as well as do research and have conversations where they can be honest about the struggles, but feel empowered to not only survive but thrive, really meant the world of a difference.
Wow, impressive. And I think those two major initiatives that you're involved in really contribute a lot in the community we live in. If we can just start with, for example, the one you mentioned, many a times a lot of problems that society is facing is related to romantic relationships. And as
Yes.
society as well, many times we love to judge. If we to see someone who's changing partners without actually understanding, what they are actually going through. And what was some of the challenges that you faced with that, also considering that you're also, a young adult?
So I think one of the challenges that I initially noted was just the comfort to actually acknowledge it as an issue, right? We can internally acknowledge, but as long as we have not built some sort of a relationship with the understanding that it is an issue, we're not going to be proactive to actually try, take the steps needed to address what is at bay. And so redefining the culture in itself takes a lot that we sometimes don't feel like we have. But once you give someone the platform in any, shape, size, or form to acknowledge what it is they already know, and be able to kind of create a linkage between what is external and what is internal, they begin to feel like they can actually make a difference. Because going back to what you said about, us existing in a society where the youth seem to be, quite materialistic, I really think it stems from a place of hopelessness, right? As you rightfully mentioned in the introduction, I am Zimbabwean by birth, and I also live in Zimbabwe. And, there's so much, even on a global spec, that could make people really feel like it's not necessary to try change anything because so much is working against us. But when we start to realize that the moment you change one thing about your immediate sphere of influence, it makes your immediate world better. And if we're all trying to make our immediate world better with the same pure intent, it goes a long way. And so it was initially a challenge to make people see the importance of not only recognizing, but trusting that what they recognize is worth pursuing. But we got there.
I'm loving that, there are initiatives such as these that are actually there to empower our youth, because they're the future, So if you're not going to empower them and get them ready, what future are they going to have? They also have to become parents. So I'm glad that you are getting involved whilst it's still early. And if we can maybe just talk on the care for the caregivers,
Mm.
because that's very important, and especially as you mentioned that many times you find yourself now, as a family member, the loved one, the friend, and you have to take care of your loved one that is sick, and we don't always have access to resources,
Yes.
and it's a lot that's happening today. So what challenges did you experience with this initiative?
Some challenges that I would say I was exposed to was similar to, the initiative with understanding the intersection between sexual reproductive health and mental health. There was hesitancy to admit that the burden exists. So, with the group that we had, one was a sister, another was a brother in law, the other was a mother, and there's also a child involved, and there's the hesitancy of admitting, more so with our African culture, that I am not coping. There's this, immediate, and all these people, not only were they really close to the patient undergoing dialysis, they also have just grown in spaces where they've been the rock. So for the sister, she's the firstborn. So you've always had the deputy parent syndrome. For the brother-in-law, if you are to say something along the lines of we're exhausted, we're struggling, it's like, oh, do you not want to help your wife's family? For the mother, woe to her if she is to say that I am struggling taking care of my daughter. And so initially, I could tell that there was hesitancy to actually come to admission that financially, it's been taxing. Emotionally, I'm tired as well. Physically, because for a lot of them, they talked about something that really pressed on my soul, and that's the fact that they didn't know that renal failure was an actual thing. And so you're having them get exposed to the news of it being a diagnosis, but not just a diagnosis, one that has, befallen on their family. And so there's need to understand what it actually is. What are our new dietary needs? What does our life look like as loved ones to a person who is undergoing dialysis treatment? What are our do's and don'ts? Because it's a lifelong. And so we want them to feel like they don't only need to survive, we want them to also feel like they can thrive. But the only way we can thrive is if we get to the root of the very issue at hand. How do we get to the root of the issue? Acknowledge there is one. So breaking that wall of defense that made them feel like they would be bad family members if they admitted was challenging. But again, we got there. What I also noticed was a challenge was with just relating to other loved ones who are also part of the circle of caregivers. When you're the person staying with the patient, there's certain things that you undergo that others may not understand. And that's where our mental health care comes in, because we're trying to empower you with language to be able to communicate your needs. Because you might just be angry, but what you're actually feeling is sadness. But because you don't have language for it, it bursts out as, anger, and people perceive you as, ungrateful, uncontrollable, or mean. But what you're actually feeling is helplessness in some instances. And so realizing that because we do not acknowledge what the issue is, we often find it hard to even find language around it, was another issue that I noted.
And these are very crucial challenges that that the African community, the Zimbabwean community is facing.
Yes.
But I'm loving that our initiatives, people are coming up with initiatives to sort of come and address these challenges. And what is
Yes.
your take on mental health in African communities? What's your take with that? Because I think these, initiatives exposed you to a lot. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and what's your take on that?
I think start by saying mental health is a global phenomenon. So it is not, a racial thing. It's not, it pays no respect to social class, to religion, to educational levels. It is part of our makeup as human beings. And now bringing it back to Africa, particularly in Zimbabwe, as a Zimbabwean, what I have come to understand is again language. I think this also comes from a place of me being a writer and a mental health advocate. That language around it needs to really be ironed out. There's a difference between mental health and mental illness. Mental health has to
Mm.
do with the well-being of your mind, just like physical health has to do with the well-being of your body. Being physically unwell does not mean that, when you are well, now your physical health needs to be alienated. It's something that you continuously pursue so that you don't end up in a space where you are physically unwell. So I think one of the things that, needs to be done in our communities is to iron out our understanding of what mental health truly is, because oftentimes when we do have conversations, I remember my very first session at the hospital when I talked about wanting to create a conducive environment for the caring of their minds. There was apprehension and body language tells, because they said, we don't have mental illnesses. I said, no, you're not mentally ill. We're talking about cultivating a safe enough environment for you to continue to show up as your best self as a caregiver. And so I think that's the biggest issue we currently have around us not really being able to distinguish between mental health and mental illness. Mental health really has to do with cultivating the garden of your mind.
I love that. Cultivating the garden of your mind. It's like you're speaking to my soul. So thank you for sharing. That is really very, very powerful. And when you're discussing, your first session and the different backgrounds that your clients are coming from, has
Yes.
age ever been an issue for you?
Yes, initially I could tell it was, because also just, in the beauty of things, I would say, everyone that was part of the group was at least twice my age. So you are bringing what they would initially think, are foreign objects, to the discussions. But the more we conversed, the more they realized that they've always felt and known these things. They just haven't had language around it, so they haven't been able to bring to create sustainable frameworks to actually address this. But they has, even with beginning the application process itself. We do live in a very glamour um glamorized society to some degree. There's this fixation, I would say glamour fixated, society, where there's this, desire to just show the end product. And so of course there are reservations, because people don't want to feel like they're being used as well for some sort of like stepping stone to something else. And so being able to create that rapport and show that I am truly present for the well-being of us all. Because if you're not well as a caregiver, mind you, don't only operate as a caregiver, you're also probably a lawyer somewhere else, you're a teacher somewhere else. And if I'm not going to look out for you with the resources and the skills I have a younger sister who's probably going to be taught by you. And because you're not doing well, it creates an unhealthy and toxic cycle. And we don't want that. And so reframing the narrative around, what younger people can give really went a long way. I'm not coming in as wanting to leech, but I am coming in as wanting to cultivate the very ground that I'm saying I want to see a healthy tree in. It changed the game completely.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And if there's someone watching right now and wondering, those are amazing initiatives, and I would love to support Tanaka. What do you need assistance with? How can they support you?
I would start by saying having them realize the function of promoting mental health in every space. Now, that means everyone is a key stakeholder, from the teacher who has a preschool class to a corporate that has, workers that are in a field that seems, to be revered and, are isolated from everyone else. And the reason why I say that is, and we talked about the cyclic nature of certain issues. When we don't practice, or when we do not rather instill the understanding in children that when we are upset, it's okay to take time aside, actually write down what it is we're feeling and process it so that we develop an understanding of what emotion it is, that person grows up into an adult who, the moment something goes south, the whole building burns. And so I would love to collaborate with organizations of from every field, really, because like I said, mental health, liken it to your physical health, affects each and every human being. That also comes with financial capacity to undertake some of these initiatives, because the Walk the Talk project was voluntary. So you need to factor in costs around travel, you need to factor in costs around creating a safe and conducive environment for hosting these sessions. So that would very much, be appreciated. And also having people truly share what you have understood from this, what you've understood from reading a blog post, share. Because we already spend so much time sharing things that we have no business doing so. We're sharing pictures from accident scenes that we have no business doing so, because, again, we're going to probably affect the person who is going to view this in a negative way. And so, share. We're 30 seconds of just saying, go take a walk, go take a run, really goes a long way, because this is not just about me being at the forefront of the work in progress movement. It is about creating sustainability in the mental health workspace.
Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And for someone that's considering studying psychology or pursuing a career in mental health, and they're watching you right now and they're thinking, wow, I think I also want to be, in social development. What advice, what words of encouragement do you have to give them?
I would start by saying, understand that this is work in progress, meaning whatever it is that you are learning, you need to apply. We're not learning to be experts that then, are condescending and condemn others for the issues they have because we have an understanding. We live in an age where we are getting skills so that we can go and harass other people with those very skills that we have. And that's not it. So you are going to be confronted by the very things that you are learning. We do not encourage self-diagnosing, of course, but you're going to read some stuff and it's going to sound like you. What that means is you need to now put in the work to become the better version of self that you are definitely capable of becoming. Because, hey, truth is, we want to operate in spaces where we feel represented. So if you are coming with an attitude of perfection and trying to relate to someone who is struggling with addiction, then it defeats the purpose, because you're going to be a center of knowledge, but not very effective in relating to people and creating that change we want to see. Secondly, I would say understand that your 5 loaves and 2 fish are definitely essential. They're worth it. I know a lot of times we look at people in the mental health space and we think, oh my word, they have it figured out. I do not have maybe the skills that they have in expressing themselves. I'm not as eloquent. Maybe I feel like maybe I'm not as well read. I lack exposure. But what is it that you have that can be a game changer? Your empathy, your kindness, seemingly small yet essential things go a long way. So really take time. I know it sounds old and might feel like it's not the biggest game changer, but take time to write down what your 5 loaves and 2 fish are. Acknowledge them, embrace them, and let them out into the world so that they can germinate.
I love that. 5 loaves and 2 fish. I am loving that, and I'm definitely taking that with me, moving
Absolutely.
forward. And I think I can, also just added what you said when you're saying we are work in progress. That also means
Mm,
that some of the things you're learning, you have to now use that for yourself. So don't think that it's all about,
absolutely.
the knowledge is not only to empower others, but mostly it's to empower you, because when you're empowered and when you are taking care of your own mental well-being, you're also able to,
Mhm.
assist others process their own emotions. So it goes back to what
Yeah.
you were saying, that it's a cycle. What we always do towards the end of our show is we always ask our guests to share with us their masterpiece, which is a coloring in of our logo. And you, madam, shared this gorgeous portrait with us. Can you please walk through with us the reason behind your colorings? I'm loving the lipstick. It's very bold. I'm like, yes, I need to have a shade.
Thank you very much. I absolutely love this part of your segment because it awoke my inner child and allowed me time to really reflect on where I'm at in my journey as a young lady and what I believe is befitting. So I chose very bright and lively colors because for the longest times, um, I felt like the most acceptable one can be as a lady is within, the confines of subtlety, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with subtlety, but I think sometimes we do it because we're afraid maybe our light will shine too bright. We're afraid of not being accepted or stereotyped, mislabeled. But truth is, we do ourselves the greatest injustice when we don't actually acknowledge that which sets our soul on fire. So the green, the yellow, the orange, representative of vitality and warmth and happiness, really speak to our power as women to generate, that growth when are true to that which sets our soul on fire. And that lip shade is just here to say, yes, I am certain that alive is what I want to be. Not just living, but alive.
I love that. I love it, love it, love it. Especially when you're saying that we need to acknowledge more of what sets our soul on fire. And I think
Absolutely.
many a times, especially as African women, we
Mm,
don't get to acknowledge that. We're
yeah,
always supposed to be subtle. We can't really voice our opinions. We can't really
mm,
express ourselves. So well done to you, madam. I love it. I'm seeing the fire and the glitter and the glow in you through your duke.
thank
And I can
you.
see that you're also wearing orange today.
Yes, yes. Talk about walking the talk. Wear your
You
heart on
know?
your sleeve, they say.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us and also just honoring our invitation. We truly appreciate you, ma'am. And my prayer for you is that may the Lord Almighty continue to bless you. May He continue to lead you, to keep you. Let His face just continue to shine upon you. I really think
Amen.
that you're an amazing young lady with a
Thank,
super duper bright, awesome future ahead of you. And I
thank you
cannot
so
wait to see the impact you continue to make, especially after you've registered. So we are rooting for you this side.
Thank you so much, Miss Chantal. I appreciate not only the platform you created to be able to share our stories, but also the person you are, because character that has nothing to do with platform. And I hope that as people watch, they really get to feel the essence of your soul and are reminded of how important it is, again, to put work in the background and really cultivate your soul because it just flows seamlessly as it is now through you. So thank you so much for this opportunity. May God continue to replenish your soul in each and every way so that you're able to do the work that you are doing and more that is in store for you without feeling depleted.